All right, physical media collection video 2, moving on from John Carpenter, going all the way over to Italy to hang out with our boy Dario Argento. So let's jump right into it. Once again, I'm going to be covering every film I own from him. I'm going to start with his directed films first. He wrote some of these as well, but these are the ones he directed. And then at the end, I'm going to throw in the 5 films that he wrote but did not direct. And I will only be covering the horror movies that he did, because he did do quite a few other non-horrors that he helped write. But I'm sticking to the horror, and plus I don't own any of those other ones. So this is, serves my channel, because obviously it's a horror channel. I know in the Carpenter one, I did do some non-horror ones, but I just so happen to own them, and I'm sure that if I had the non-horror ones, I'd probably show them to you. But I don't. So here we go. We're going to start all the way back, obviously, at the beginning. We're going to do it in order as we did with Carpenter, and we are going to start in 1970, the year that we were given Dario Argento, and we are going to start with The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This is the Arrow release here. I actually just showed this to Kaylee not too long ago. We've been kind of making our way through his filmography. This one I like. I don't feel like he hits his stride until Deep Red personally, but a lot of these have a very similar feel to them. And with all giallos, you typically always have to take the story with a grain of salt. They don't always make perfect sense. It's more style over substance, and I've just accepted a lot of that with these films. Although my analytical brain, especially with plot lines, I do have a hard time disconnecting from my desire to make sense of things, and I kind of sit back and go, what the fuck? How? What? And when I overthink it, it can hurt the film. And so you kind of have to train yourself with these movies to not do that. And if you're someone like me that just kind of naturally does it, it goes against your instincts. It goes against, your natural inclination. So anyway, moving on to 1971, his follow-up film. This is a beautiful set here. We have The Cat o' Nine Tails, which has the thicker box cover here. I always love these. I'm a big fan of these. I don't own a lot of these from Arrow, but I always love them. Inside you have, of course, the Blu-ray here, and these are region B, and so that sucks for anyone who doesn't have these region-free or all-region players. You have to get them in order to play these, but if you are a collector of foreign films, you kind of have to have one. So it's an investment, but it's a worthy one. It just sucks because you can't play these on other things, that you have, so that is a bit of a bummer. And it also comes with a book inside talking about the film as well. So really beautiful set. I always love these box sets like this. I've always been a big fan of them, even though they're expensive. So I typically don't pick them up, and a lot of Argento movies do have these. I just could never afford them. In fact, it's the only one I have for Argento. All right, next up, also in 1971, we have Four Flies on Grey Velvet. This one I only have on DVD. We rewatched this one also recently, as well as the Cat of Nine Tails, or The Cat o' Nine Tails. These all kind of feel pretty similar to me. I pretty much like them equally. I don't love them, but I do like them, and I think that they're just kind of building the aesthetic of what will become the blueprint for the giallo that will span the next decade of filmmaking within Italy. And Argento, of course, is a huge name that was responsible for giving us so much of the style that we come to know from so many other directors. So we do have Argento to thank for a lot of it, Mario Bava and others, but Argento is probably the biggest name attached to the giallo. But he didn't just make giallos, but he made a lot of them. Next one, of course, also being a giallo. This is arguably a lot of people's favorite film of his, and this is from 1975. Huge hiatus here, big 4 years off to do this, but we got Deep Red, another Arrow release here. These Arrow transfers are beautiful. Definitely pick them up if you have the means to do so. These can get very pricey, and unfortunately I was collecting them as they released, so they were much cheaper. Once they're out of print, they can get really, really pricey. Deep Red is one I love. Profondo Rosso definitely has probably I shouldn't say definitely, probably. It has my favorite soundtrack, my favorite song from Argento. I think that the soundtrack in here is excellent. When he works with Goblin and others, the music in these movies are always strong, and I just love the music in Deep Red. And this is the first one that I just genuinely love. I think Deep Red is arguably his best film. I'm also obviously a big fan of Tenebrae, hence the shirt. And like everybody, I love Suspiria, but those would be like my top three. But Deep Red is definitely in contention for my favorite of his movies. I just think it's such a strong giallo and one of the best ever made. Moving on to 1977, the most expensive movie in my collection that I bought brand new when it came out, because I had always said, if this ever got a Blu-ray, I wanted it. And this was the Blu-ray Steelbook from Synapses, however you say this. They have such a beautiful 4K restoration of this. This unfortunately isn't the 4K, but it is a 4K restoration on Blu-ray. This is just one of the most beautiful Steelbooks imaginable. I mean, this thing is gorgeous. You know, the slipcover is also very cool here. But this is something that cost me I think it was like $75 shipped. So I typically would not spend that much, but I had said if this ever got a proper release on Blu-ray, I'd buy it, and I'd pay $100 for it if need be. And I wasn't far off with that. Once this got released, I was kind of like, oh shit, I said I was gonna do it, and at the time I had the money, so I threw it down. But that was the most expensive brand new release I had ever purchased, and I still love it. I would have loved to have gotten the 4K of it instead, of course, but this is a beautiful copy nonetheless. And of course, I also have to accompany that with the very shockingly great Suspiria remake. I just wanted to show that we have this. This is the only Argento film that I'm aware of that got a remake. And this is so wildly different than the original. It very much stands on its own, but I think is a good companion piece to it. And Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton, Mia Goth, and Chloe Grace Moretz. Really strong cast. Obviously, Tilda Swinton plays multiple characters in this, which I didn't even know when I was in the theater. But such a cool movie, and the aesthetic in it is excellent, and it's just such a different film. And it has a soundtrack from Tom York from Radiohead, and it's definitely not like anything you've ever seen. I know a lot of people think it's boring, but I definitely do not. I can understand it though. The movie is slow, but the imagery is strong. It feels nothing like Suspiria, but it has its own style to it that I think is, very, very good as well. So I just had to bring it in here because, of course, I'm also including any remakes or whatnot. And, of course, I also have it. This is the only Argento film I have on VHS, and this is Suspiria. So I wanted to point that out as well. But this is it. This is the only VHS I have from Argento. So there you go. All right, moving on to the 80s. With 1980, we get the second film in the Mothers trilogy, the Three Mothers trilogy from Argento, starting, of course, first with Suspiria. This moving on to Inferno here, this Arrow release, another Region B, another movie that I have to have this one player I have. A very visually cool movie. The plot has never made a tremendous amount of sense to me, but I would always love to go back and revisit it because I do like the aesthetic of that one quite a bit. It is one of his more underrated films for a lot of people, but it's one I need to definitely check out again. All right, moving on to 1982, good year, the year I was born. We've got Tenebrae. This goes along with my shirt really well. This has some of my favorite visuals in his filmography. I think it's very, very cool. It's got great music. The plot line is as convoluted as they get, much like most of these, but this one is, extra convoluted in my opinion. But man, I always enjoy watching the hell out of it, and that shirt open, kill on the stairs, love it. That's some of my favorite imagery in an Argento film. Moving on to 1985, we have him working with Donald Pleasence and Jennifer Connelly, which was really cool to see, and this is Phenomenon. This is also called like Creepers, I want to say, if I remember correctly. Something like that. And this one is one I haven't seen in a long while, but it's got some pretty memorable scenes. The body pit and the apes and the bugs and all that stuff. It's one I definitely want to revisit, and Kaylee will definitely be very up for that. So I look forward to showing her a lot of these. All right, moving on to 1987 with Opera. This one has some very cool imagery as well. I did rewatch this not too long ago. This is from, I think, Scorpion. Yeah, Scorpion. And probably the most iconic imagery from this is the little needles that are taped under the eyes so that she has to watch what the killer is doing. Of course, in the end, the plot becomes very convoluted, but that's to be expected with these. But this is another one that I quite enjoy. Unfortunately, we're coming close to the end of his movies that are good, but it is what it is. All right, next up we have from 1990, we're getting into the 90s now, a film he made alongside of George A. Romero, an anthology of sorts, with Adrienne Barbeau. We talked about her with John Carpenter, obviously, since she was married to him. But we have Two Evil Eyes. And this one is only a 2-story anthology. Those are pretty rare. And, you get at least 3 stories. But with this one, only 2, which is kind of cool. You get 2 evil eyes. You get the American director and an Italian director working together. And I think that's really cool. This kind of reminds me, of course, when Tobe Hooper and John Carpenter, not that they're not both Americans, but I'm saying that 2 big horror directors got together to make an anthology with Body Bags. This is kind of like Argento's Body Bags alongside of Romero, which of course Romero made Creepshow, one of the best anthologies ever, so it was a smart pairing. We also have Tom Atkins in here. You get Gore from Tom Savini. You got Harvey Keitel in here, so you got a lot of cool names that are in here. So for a lot of you who probably haven't even heard of this, There you go. Two Evil Eyes. All right, moving on to 1993. I want to say this is one of the first films that Dario Argento makes an appearance in. She might have been in another one of these younger, but this one has Brad Dourif and Piper Laurie in it as well. And this is Trauma. Now, this movie does get a little bit of shit in the community, only because, you know, he puts his daughter in a movie at 18 years old, like the second she could be in a movie like this, and films her provocatively naked. And I know some people are like, what's up with that? That's weird. And I can understand that for sure. But, you know, this is a lot of these are similar to where this girl, you know, she's a serial killer's after her, and this young guy helps her out, and you know, whatnot. So it's okay. I would love to revisit it. A lot of these I've only seen once or twice, and so my memory of them isn't strong. But I like a lot of his earlier stuff. But we are starting to get towards the end of what I do like. All right, next up with Stendhal syndrome. Not Stockholm syndrome like a lot of people might think it is. No, this is Stendhal syndrome. And this is a rare condition where people get like overwhelmed, dizzy, faint from seeing beautiful works of art. I guess that's a real condition. This one also stars Dario Argento. It has a pretty rough rape scene in here from my memory, and once again, that's another thing. It's like, how can you film your daughter? This is a trauma release, which is really weird to me. This does not feel trauma at all. So somehow Trauma came across the rights to release this is kind of wild to me, because they make such trash, and this just does not line up with that kind of stuff at all. But it is what it is. But yeah, so weird to see Trauma releasing a movie like this. All right, next up from 1998, we get Phantom of the Opera. That'll perk up my wife's ears because she's a massive Phantom of the Opera fan. And Dario Argento made a Phantom of the Opera with Julian Sands and, of course, Dario Argento, who he uses quite a bit. Once he starts using her, he can't stop using her. And I get it. I love my daughters. If I could work with them, and I could have them be interested in filmmaking with me, I would be very excited about that. So I can't knock the guy for wanting to work with his family, but as I said, the other stuff, I don't know. I don't know what my opinion on that stuff is. But regardless, this has a very memorable scene in The Rat Catchers. That's definitely the thing that sticks out the most to my memory. There's this like machine that these guys drive around on that feels like something out of fucking Labyrinth, that like catches rats. It like sucks them up, and these guys like, you know, it either cuts them up or sucks them up this like vacuum cleaner thing, and it's like almost like a ride-on lawnmower. Weird. Such a weird addition to that movie, but it adds to the very quirky aesthetic of the film. So I don't know. It's not well regarded, but there's some fun to be had in here. All right. In 2001, we get what I think is probably his last really, really damn good movie, and probably his most underrated film, and this is Sleepless. This is a really, really cool set here from Scorpion that has a nice slipcover. This was kind of hard to get my hands on when I originally found it. This is a Region A though, so you don't have to have a Region Free player for this one. This one has Max von Sydow in it, and I really like this one. I think this one is super cool. Another serial killer comes back from, like, you know, he or she, I don't honestly remember. I'm not giving anything away. I can't remember who the killer is. But it's like been like 17 years and the killer starts up again. There's a really cool opening sequence on a train, if memory serves, and I really liked that. All right, moving on to 2003 with the Card Player. This is where we get into like the internet age. This one actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Spiral from the Book of Saw, actually, weirdly enough. When I was thinking back on the story, I'd have to watch it again, but there's this killer who's working like through the internet, and these police detectives are like playing this like video poker against the killer, and the killer's like all about being a card player, but it's not very good. It's not very good. This is where he definitely started to lose his style for sure. So these start to get really rough from here, unfortunately, but I still somewhat like watching these, but man, they can be pretty freaking rough. All right, moving on to 2005. We got a love letter to Hitchcock here, and this movie is called Do You Like Hitchcock? Which obviously Argento very much does, as do a lot of these directors. Mario Bava was heavily inspired by him, and so yeah, Hitchcock gets his own film here. This kind of plays like an homage in a lot of ways. This guy is like a Hitchcock enthusiast, and he thinks that there's like a strangers on a train thing going on here, and he's watching from across the street, like Rear Window. So there's a lot of homages and references to Hitchcock within the film. They talk about Hitchcock a lot. It's kind of like the Scream for Argento, if Scream only dealt with Hitchcock movies. So, it is what it is. It's not very good, but, of course I'm going to own it because it's Argento. What is on here? I don't know. All right, moving on to his Masters of Horror episodes. We get, now this is something I do quite like, and this is Jennifer, which is an interesting episode. There's this woman who has a grotesque face, but this phenomenal body that she uses to lure people in and have sex with them. And this guy like becomes obsessed with protecting her. He's like a cop, and her sex is like her superpower, her horror that she uses against people. She lures people in with her seduction, but then she has this really gnarly face. But I think it's interesting because, it shows how simplistic men can be. It's like, well, I just kind of ignore her face. She's got this amazing body, and even though she seems to be like a succubus or something, I don't know, they just get drawn in. And I like it. I'm a big fan of that one, actually. So he did do something else, and then we get his next episode called Pelts, which stars Meatloaf, which is cool. John Saxon is in here as well, returning from Tenebrae. So that's cool. This one, I don't remember as well. It's been a while since I watched it, but I do think I liked it. And I honestly don't remember this one very well. But there it is. I need to go back and rewatch these. But I did cover all of these, so you can watch my reviews when I do remember them. The ones he directed anyways, and some of the ones he wrote. All right, moving on to the final film in the Three Mothers trilogy, and this is Mother of Tears with Asia Argento returning. Udo Kier is in this as well. He was in a few of Argento's films all the way back to Suspiria. But this one is okay. I remember some really striking imagery that was pretty wild. I remember somebody like eating the intestines through someone's asshole. Like, it gets pretty wild in the end. But yeah, there you go. It's been a long time, because I think Inferno was 1980. So 27 years between movie 2 and 3. Now, they don't really fully connect. They just kind of have some connections. They're not like true sequels. But anyway, there you go. Moving on to 2009, we have the Adrian Brody film Giallo. This one's just straight up called Giallo. And they took that quite literally, since the word giallo means yellow. The killer in this is in fact yellow. He has a condition where he has like a liver issue, and so his body is yellow. Very reminiscent of the dude in Sin City that Nick Stahl plays. After he gets like his dick shot off, and then we see him again in the film. He's like this yellow villain. Kind of reminds me of that a bit. But yeah, they literally took the yellow and attached it to the killer, which is fun. All right, moving on to his worst film. This is just dreadful in every imaginable way. This is Dario Argento's Dracula 3D with Rutger Hauer. Oh my goodness, this movie is awful in every way. The special effects are laughably horrible. It's just, I just can't say enough bad about it. I thought it was so fucking bad. And that brings us to his last directed film, which is Dark Glasses, which he made in 2022. Just very recently. He took a 10-year hiatus after Dracula, which came out in 2012. And I actually had to buy this as a bootleg, because at this point we couldn't get it here in the States for a while, and I wanted to see it, and there was just no other way to get it, and everyone else was seeing it, and I was like, well, I want to own it, and I got it for really cheap, and this is a damn good copy for the price I paid for it. I think they do a really good job on their stuff. It's like, a clear case. It has artwork on the inside. It feels like a legit thing. I got this. I got Texas Chainsaw from 2022. I got a few films that weren't going to be released physically. I think that this does have a physical release now, but I don't know. All right, getting into the movies that he wrote. He wrote both Demons 1 and 2. Of course, had to have those. Loved these films. Showed them to Kaylee as well. And they're always fun. These have some great memorable moments. Obviously, with, I think, isn't it Tony the Pimp? Isn't that his name? He's got a great line, of course, that's iconic from the first movie. But I do quite like the second film as well, set in the apartment building. These never really fully go the places I'd love them to go, but these are made by Mario Bava's son, Lamberto Bava, who's made some really cool stuff. Then he made a couple films with his, what he was saying was going to be the guy who kind of took over for him. He was going to be the heir apparent for Argento, but never really lived up to that. He made The Church as well as The Sect. And I never know how to say this guy's name. It's like Michel Sauvé or something like that. But yeah, I've seen both. I don't remember them very well, to be completely honest. But you got to have them. So I will rewatch these at some point. It's just, there you go. And then lastly, Demons is 85, Demons 2 is 86, Church was 89, The Sect was 1991. And then the last film that he collaborated on as a writer, but not a director, was The Wax Mask. And this is from 1997. I don't know if I've seen this one. I think this might be the only one I have not seen. So this is one I definitely got to get to at some point. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I have not seen this one. So The Wax Mask, has anyone seen this one? Because I haven't. All right, so there you go, guys. The Argento collection. Which ones of these have you seen? Which ones are your favorite? Which copies of these do you also have, or copies that you have that are different and you think are better or worse? You wish you had to get an upgrade, or you think mine are a downgrade. I do love those box sets, like I said. I just you know, they're so expensive. I could only justify it when some of them were on sale. And yeah, so that's that. A lot of Arrow releases here. But my favorite of these, of course, being the Suspiria Steelbook. That thing's beautiful, and I'm always glad that I bought it. So, yeah, Argento covered. And next time, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I will put some thought into it, and I'll see you guys there. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you in the comments. Bye.